Mitchell, followed by Wendy Burkett, and then Karen Hausman. Ms. Mitchell?
I have to determine whether or not I need my glasses or not. So, let me just quite sure. Look at that. Okay. I'm Daisy Mitchell, 204 Trailbridge Court, Winter Garden, Florida, 34787. I'll just let me know when the clock starts. Oh,
It'll be right up.
I'm sorry. Because I'm going to need my daughter to do this kind of stuff. Can you hear me now? Is that good? Okay, perfect.
It starts when you start.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I haven't done this in a while. Okay. Last night, Mrs. Maria Vasquez answered the question we wanted the board to consider. While workshopping, a safe and developmentally appropriate implementation of digital learning software and digital device policy. Mrs. Vasquez was simply CC'd, and we appreciate the time she devoted to answer the questions, which has actually led to more questions and confusion. For this reason, we publicly ask that the board workshop a policy for safe and developmentally appropriate implementation of digital learning software and digital devices. Each board member has yet to contact me directly. Perhaps it got lost in the pile as it was sent on August 8th, 2018, which is when I made the request. We feel that the board and OCPS should have developed a safe and developmentally appropriate implementation of digital learning software and digital device policy in 2014. Now, in 2018, the board needs to be hands-on, do intensive research, bring experts and parents to develop the policy. Have you considered holding the workshop? When will the workshop be held? Because I haven't heard from any of the board members yet. The bottom line is that we need a written policy that is clearly labeled and easily accessible in each school's website. We will follow up via email in the next few days, as we will like to be part of the digital classroom program planning process per the 2016/2017 district DCP allocation section of the Florida Department of Education website. So there's a template there. I'm not sure if you're aware of that template, but there's a template there that will allow us as parents to actually have an input on this policy, which again, we're looking at for the safety and whether it is developmentally appropriate, all of the software that's being used, and the fact that we're handing these digital devices, and we started doing that in 2014, and I couldn't find this policy. It's not in any of the school websites. So as you create this policy, please consider the following. What adaptive learning software will students be using, especially in grades K through 5, and what's the purpose? How many minutes of screen time is considered safe for each group? How would you protect the eyes from short? Someone else will pick up probably where I left off. So I hope you consider holding this workshop. Thank you.
Next is Wendy Burkett.
Thank you, and Wendy Burkett, 7232 Bay Club Way, Orlando, Florida, 32835. I'll just start. Thank you for hearing our comments. Thank you for the effort I see in the policies of looking at some of the APA and Academy of Pediatrics recommendations. I see they're included in some of your policies, so I appreciate that. I do want to clarify that I'm not speaking for PTA today. That is one of my roles. I'm just speaking as a mom. PTA is working on a resolution on this topic, but we're not speaking to it as of yet. So this is just myself and speaking for my 3 children and our experience for the digital rollout. The American Academy of Pediatrics at aap.org recommends that parents and caregivers develop a family media plan. And it lines out 8 hours for school time, and then the time when kids are at home. How are you going to develop that? Problems begin when media use displaces hands-on exploration, face-to-face interaction, real-world experiences, and physical activity and sleep and that sort of a thing. And so we request similarly that we would develop a model classroom plan where, and it may not be like mandated, but a model for teachers to follow to do sort of the same thing in their classroom. That if you've got these computers out all of those 8 hours of the day, what part of it is the computer going to be shut, and what part of it is going to be hands-on learning, and what part of it is going to be physical activity. And it would be great to develop a classroom model very similar to the family media plan that they have in the American Academy of Pediatrics. And one of the notes from Jenny Radsky, who was one of the lead authors of the American Academy of Pediatrics policy statement, Media and Young Minds, she says they need a media mentor, which means teaching them how to use media as a tool to create, connect, and learn. And we have teachers in my children's schools, Tildenville and Lakeview, Mr. Connor especially, and Gifted, who's done a fabulous job using his technology to create, to connect, and to learn. However, there are others who use it sort of as an additional teacher, and so I think the classroom guideline would really be a helpful tool to build, and to have parents involved in building that. Research shows that we need to diversify our media, use media in a way that promotes interaction, connection, and creativity. Media use is best diversified so that not all of one's time is spent doing one particular activity, and that would go to schools that might lean too heavily on one software program. It really does need to be integrated, and some schools are really doing great at that. Research has shown that face-to-face time with family and friends, and in this case teachers, plays a pivotal role. So thank you for hearing me.
Next speaker is Karen Hausman, followed by Cindy Hamilton, and then Stephanie Veros.
My name is Karen Hausman, and I live at 234 North Lakeview Avenue in Winter Garden, Florida. My daughter's experience with IReady has been a frustrating one. Starting in kindergarten as an advanced reader, she was given vocabulary questions like this one. Define the word adjudication using the following sentence. IReady then read a sentence to her and read multiple choice options for the definition. She had 10 similar questions in this section, followed by 10 extremely basic questions. In second grade, she was being asked to write 2-paragraph answers giving her opinions of different characters in different passages, comparing and contrasting while stating text examples. Each of these reading lessons could last for 2 or 3 hours, yet she was expected to complete a minimum of 15 reading and 15 math lessons per quarter. She had not yet been taught keyboarding, how to formulate paragraphs, how to use text examples. She spent a lot of time looking for each of the letters on the computer keyboard, which made it difficult for her to focus on the answers. When I asked the school why they were not teaching keyboarding before requiring such lessons like this on IReady, I was told that each student had access to, in a Launchpad, to a keyboard tutoring software program that they could use to teach themselves keyboarding on their own time. But keyboarding is not a Florida standard, and therefore it's not taught in school, in elementary school. The explanation as to why she was being given questions on things she had not yet learned in class was that because she was an advanced student, the computer assumed that she'd been taught these concepts. Really? The computer didn't recognize that she was in 2nd grade and that these things were not Florida standards for 2nd grade? I was under the impression that IReady is used to reinforce classroom learning, but this is obviously not the case. I've personally seen students sob while doing quarterly IReady diagnostic tests, not understanding why they're being quizzed on material they've not yet learned. One child even wet herself The teacher knows best the student and what the student is best able to do. They're able to determine the student's true reading level and learning level. I can't understand the fact that IReady even reads the reading lessons to the students. Common sense would seem to say that the student should be able to read their reading passages, yet they're being pushed so far past their reading level that the computer is having to read it to them. IReady is being hailed as being such an effective tool for preparing students for taking FSA, yet even as a parent, I can see how flawed the software is. How is this fair to our students or to our teachers when IReady is being used as a tool to evaluate teachers as well as our students? Where's the hard data that justifies the $5,087,750 IReady software investment made and approved in February of 2017 by this board? Did even one of you participate in a demonstration of this software or go to school to see any of the students using it or the teachers or talk to the parents? It's provided no noticeable improvement in the test scores as the percentage of third graders passing FSA reading exam fell in 2018 compared to 2017. Guidelines for computers must be established. Thank you.
Next is Cindy Hamilton.
Want me to move it down?
No.
Okay.
City Hamilton, 4199, Tomasa Court, Orlando, 32812. This year, during laptop distribution, parents and students were expected to sign a consent form online and were not provided with a hard copy. An all-or-nothing consent, which included who has access to personal identifiable information. The final page of the consent allows access to a person or company with whom the district has contracted to perform a certain task. What companies are receiving personal identifiable information about our students and for what purpose? Full disclosure should be available to all students and their families. ESSA weakened FERPA protection, so invoking FERPA should always come with a full explanation of what those protections now look like. In a study, Fordham Law Center on Law and Information Policy contacted data brokers looking to see what limits existed in the commercial use of student data. Their study, Transparency in the Marketplace for Student Data, found little transparency for data subjects about how student data is being used commercially. Data brokers advertise lists of students organized for traits, from religion to awkwardness, yet almost no information exists for the students or parents about where that data is being collected, how high-level insight is being derived, or what rights they have to opt out of the collection. Market research company Matari found the EdTech investments earned over $9 billion worldwide. Marketing data is an even bigger market and will top $115 billion next year. So where are the data miners within OCPS? One example would be Khan Academy. They allow third parties like YouTube and Google to place cookies on computers, which allow those third parties to collect and store information on student web usage, and that is subject to third-party privacy policies. Google has admitted scanning and indexing student email messages and data mining users for commercial gain. Google can collect student and family data, which can help target ads through related services such as YouTube and Google+. These are not covered under the already watered-down FERPA. The bottom line is that the public has no real grasp on what EdTech platforms are being used within OCPS and if any data is being mined here in this district. From National Review, personalized learning is an edutech buzz phrase for hijacking classrooms and hooking students and teachers on branded software and hardware. In 2009, Jeb Bush was promoting personalized learning as a piece of his privatization plan, and we are cooperating. Thanks.
Next three speakers are Stephanie Vanos, Stephanie Statuto, and LaWanda Thompson.
Hi, I'm Stephanie Vanos. My address is 801 South Mills Avenue, Orlando 32801. I hate public speaking almost as much as I hate IReady, but I'm here because I am just concerned about what I see in my daughter's and just generally the elementary schools here with respect to computers and technology and IReady, and really just not being used, I don't think, appropriately. Not being used according to the IReady guidelines that are out there, and also just questioning whether the guidelines themselves are appropriate. And so I just wanted to share with you my review of some of the research that I've looked at in connection with just studies that have been done with respect to computer technology and adaptive software. And and I would suggest to you that the totality of the evidence suggests that these things do not positively impact academic performance. And just to summarize a couple of the key points that I found, the first is that technology use in classrooms tends to distract from educational learning more than it adds to it. The second is that countries that have heavily invested in technology for classrooms have seen no noticeable improvements in standardized test scores. The third is, I think this is super interesting, with respect to the adaptive learning software. The developers themselves have found that they're really bad at figuring out why students answer questions incorrectly, and 90% of the time the remediation that the software provides to the student is just not helpful. And I think that some of that misunderstanding and confusion would be so much better addressed if students were working collaboratively or working with a teacher instead of just staring at a computer screen where they kind of get frozen and stuck when they get to a place that they don't understand. And the last thing, which I think is the most important, is that the more time students are on computers, in front of screens, and dealing with software, it's less time that they are thinking creatively, that they're working collaboratively, that they're engaging in meaningful conversations, and that they're applying the skills and knowledge that they've learned to real-life situations. So I would just ask that you, as a board, not be distracted by big shiny objects and really just look at the research on this type of technology and software for our school. And I think that when you look at the big picture, there's a lot of big promises but underwhelming results that don't justify investing $5 million of our district's money. I did just want to point out one study, because that's all I'm going to have time for, even though I did a lot more work and a lot more research, from the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development. They tracked educational outcomes among students who were using technology both at home and in classrooms. And they found that in the area of mathematics, their survey, which looked at 40 countries and students in those countries, found that almost any time spent on the computer led to poor performance in both written and digital tests. And I think math is an area that our state and our district really can focus on. And I would suggest we do less time on the computer and use of adaptive software. Thank you.
Next speaker is Stephanie Statuto.
I think it's afternoon. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Stephanie Statuto. My address is 5308 Desmond Lane, Orlando, Florida, 32821. And I'm here as a mom, first time, and a mom of 2 children. A little bit of background. This is my first experience with Orange County Public Schools. My son is entering into Freedom High School as a freshman, and so it's all very new to me. I'm guessing that what I'm going to bring before you today may not be the first time it's been brought before you before, but I'm bringing it to you fresh, from a new perspective, hopefully as a mother. Before I enrolled my son into high school, I had concerns about safety, and so I did a lot of research, checking into what the main issues were in the public school system, and obviously found out about overcrowding. And the one thing I was a little surprised about was the bus overcrowding, and that was a big concern for me. And I brought that to the attention of my school board representative, and was assured that the issues that I was hearing about kids sitting on the floor was absolutely not permitted or allowed, and that it would not be continued. So my personal story with my son's experience on the bus has not been good. And this is six days, I guess today's 7, but I haven't talked to him yet today. 2 of the 3 of his days on the bus, there were children sitting on the floor. the first day, after I heard about the situation, I called everybody I could think of that I was recommended to call and ask for help fixing the situation and was assured that it wouldn't happen again. And every single day, there's been at least 3 children in a seat for a bus. One day, somebody was sitting on my son in order to fit in the seat, hanging out into the aisles, which in my opinion is a great safety concern for a high school. My son is 6 foot. Many of the children are even bigger than that. We're squishing them in, and they're not in behind the safety of the padded seats. And so that's a concern as well. Also, there's been many people speaking out publicly on social media about it. But it seems like I'm the only one who's come to show up to talk about it, but that's okay. I'm representing a lot of people who have brought up the same concerns, not just at my school, but at other schools. My main concerns are what I just said: sitting in the aisles, leaning into the aisles, kids not being completely into a seat, blocking of aisles, the number of students being allowed in the seat or in the bus completely, and their ability to wear seatbelts. My son says that the bus does have seatbelts, but there are only 2 per seat, and because they're being forced to sit 3 to a seat, they're not able to use the seatbelts. It's my understanding, according to Florida Statute 3166145, that seatbelts are required in buses, and if they are in the buses, the students are required to wear them. That concerns me. I'd rather my son be wearing a seatbelt, but he at this point is not able to. So that being a concern as well. My questions for the board would be: how do you define the safety of a high school bus? What is it safe? How is it safe? Is 3 high school students safe in a seat? And explain to me the statute and how we're able to put 3 high school students in a seat when there's a law saying that is not possible. I'm trying to find out what the problem is and how we can fix it. I'm not trying to create any more problems. I'm here to help work together with the board in any way I can. So thank you for your time.
Last 2 speakers are LaWanda Thompson and Jessica Torrance.
Hello, gentle ladies and gentlemen of the board. My name is LaWanda Thompson. A few of you I know. I live at 664 West Lyman, Winter Park, Florida, 32789. The clock is starting. I'm here to talk to everyone today about what I notice is a lack of diversity in Audubon Park K-8. I'm assuming that this might also be across the school districts. My concern is that when a school opens and is brand new, and I only see 3 minority teachers in a whole K-8 school, that's a problem. I called and discussed what are the different hiring practices, and I found that teachers do get to select their school outright, and that principals are allowed to basically go out and handpick their talent that they would like in a school. What I find is difficult to understand is that when on a national level right now, we're hearing that even in the White House, there's a lack of diversity, and therefore our country might not be dealt with in the proper way because of that lack of diversity. How are we showing our kids how to be proper citizens if we're not having a school that reflects our proper population, which is we are a melting pot. Teachers that go to teachers meetings and principals that are there to ensure that the school is carried out appropriately need all hands on deck, meaning that all cultures need to be in place. I find it rude, I find it senseless and ridiculous that when Florida has a minority teacher scholarship program at 35 colleges that are here in Florida, that I am told by a principal that he picked the 1% of the best teachers out there. Does that mean they're all Caucasian? Because I beg to differ. I've seen good teachers of all races, and my suggestion is that you guys start finding out how to recruit them. Thank you.
Last speaker is Jessica Torrance.
Good evening, I'm Jessica Torrance. I live at 11316 Ashboro Drive, Orlando 32837. And I am following up on Ms. Mitchell's conversation about policy building between the community and the board. She wanted, and I want, and I think all of us want, the board to consider when creating a policy, what adaptive learning software will students be using, especially in grades K through 5, and what is the purpose? So again, we're talking about that digital software in the classroom and digital technology in the classroom and handing laptops to everyone. How many minutes of screen time is considered safe for each group? How will you protect the eyes from short and long-term effects of digital eye strain, such as students experiencing dry eyes, headache, blurred vision, neck and shoulder pain? I think as adults, we've experienced these, so we know firsthand that this is absolutely something that can happen with the increased use of computer screens. How does a parent refuse the use of digital devices if a parent feels prolonged use of digital device as early as 3 years of age may be more harmful than good? Can a parent hand in a doctor's prescription if a child exhibits early signs of OCD, ADHD, and/or autism, as these conditions may become exacerbated due to prolonged and/or unmonitored use of digital devices, which is the case with my 7-year-old? Will the district create a transparent database which provides information, including cost, contract, uses, and access to collected data on all programs and software? Examples are Naviance, IReady, etc. Used in the district, which collect data from students and teachers. I believe AR falls into that as well. And how can a student purge their collected data? What does the district plan to accommodate students who will be refusing devices or not logging into any adaptive learning software? These are all just some of the questions that the parents in our community, probably the teachers, probably the principals, also have and haven't been able to come forward and ask. It seems like this policy got put into place and maybe it was a good idea, right? Like hand everybody a laptop, get all of these great softwares together so we can assist the students. But now years into this, we're seeing that there is no productive outcome. There wasn't an increase in the scores. There hasn't been a good reaction from the parents. I believe at one of the meetings, the board did admit that maybe we should look back into IReady since there has been so much negative feedback. So again, we would like the board to consider working with the community to come up with policies regarding the digital software in the classroom and the use of digital technology and laptops assigned to students. Thank you so much for your time tonight.